Okay, Mom. Series number 3 of our conversation tonight. I want to talk to you a little bit about the guy you married.
Oh boy.
So, who was the man that you ended up marrying, and what was his birth date?
I ended up marrying John Matthew, John M. Matthew. We don't use the middle name. Birthday, December 16, 1943.
Very nice. So, how did you meet Dad? Tell me a little bit about meeting him. I think you met him as a young kid, and then you also met him later on. Tell me a little bit about that.
I didn't meet him as a young kid. I remember him coming to church with his father and brothers where we went to church. He wasn't a regular at the church though, and I remember seeing him. And then a little later on, when he was coming to church, we were in the same Sunday school class, and they were thinking about doing some activities with the class, different things we could do to kind of bond the class a little bit. And I think Daddy mentioned something about dancing, something to that effect. And the Sunday school teacher says we don't dance.
How old would you have been then?
We'd have probably been juniors or seniors in high school.
Probably 16.
You know.
Okay.
And so on. But then wasn't until our senior year in high school at the East-West game. And we caught the bus together to go over to East-West Stadium. Now the reason for that was because, my band and I think, both of us, we had prayed in the morning of that day. And then we had time off after the parade, and then we had to be there for the football game around 1 o'clock. So I lived on the east side, and I had to catch the bus back to 12th Street in Fairmont. And your dad lived out in the country, so he had come in from the parade, and he stayed, or gone up to stay with his aunt till time to go. And so he caught the bus that I was on also. So we're standing down there at the corner of East Park and Speedway, and there where McDonald's is in Fairmont, and waiting for the bus. And here I am in my West Fairmont band uniform, and my John is in his East Fairmont band uniform. And of course, kids who were driving, most of them in East Fairmont were the most of them, but they would drive by and honk their horns and go Bees, and then if there was a West Fairmont, go Bears, swat them Bees and sting those Bears, and it was a little bit embarrassing, but yet Daddy and I both laughed about it. I remember we were both laughing about it. And then we took the bus all the way to 12th Street, we got off, and we even walked down the hill talking, just kind of talking. And where we went to go in to the stadium as band people, I remember him turning to me and said, "Good luck today." And I said, "Good luck to him too," and that was it.
So no exchange of phone numbers or anything like that?
No, nothing whatsoever.
Did you exchange phone numbers back then if you wanted to meet someone, or how would you end up meeting someone? So how did, tell me about the first date. How'd that come about?
I was, after graduation, there in 61, I worked for Bobbitt News in downtown Fairmont. And
What's it, like a newspaper stand?
It was a newspaper store, magazines, all the magazines. Had some toys, pipes, tobacco products, international products as far as pipes and tobaccos and stuff. And then it must have been in the winter, or maybe it was the early of 62. I got transferred from downtown Bobbitt's over to East Side to the Reedmore, which was the same thing, only it was a much smaller, newspaper place and magazines, comic books, and so on. And so I was working there. And your father, he would come home from work. He worked over at the gas station on my side, and he would come home and he would stop there and come in and get the paper. And I think it was for his father, and it was just one of those, come in and get the paper, and he was gone, But I remember one time saying to him, "Don't I know you from church?" And he said, "I don't know what church," because he wasn't going to church right at that time. And so anyway, he kind of kept coming in, but it was a very short period of time. Every day he'd come in, and this one day he come in, and he came in early, and he was going home from work, and he asked me what time I got off work. And I said, not till 9. And he said, how about we go out and get a cup of coffee, And I said, sure, And so he said, well, I'll be back at 9 o'clock. And he was back at 9 o'clock. And so we went out to, I think we went to the Parkette. I'm pretty sure that's where we went.
So would you have walked there?
No, he was driving. He had his car. And we drove down to the Parkette and back. And he dropped me off at the house. And, said he'd see me later, and so on.
Did you sneak a first kiss on that date?
No. He was very nice, very polite.
Okay.
But he was a little shy.
Okay. So how long before he asked you out again?
Probably the next day or the day after.
Oh, so he came back into the store?
Yeah, he kept coming back in for that newspaper. I think it was an excuse to see me.
Uh-huh.
But yes. And then we just started dating, he'd show up and, at 9 o'clock because he knew when I was getting off work or whatever, and we started dating.
What was it that you were attracted to about him?
Well, first of all, he was very nice, and he was cute, and he had gorgeous red-orange hair. He was taller than me. He was tall.
Tall and skinny.
Yeah, very skinny. I knew that he liked music. I didn't know he played guitar at the time, but I knew he liked music.
The common thing was we were both in a band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I knew he liked music, but I knew that from just listening to the pop songs down at the Parkette and different things like that, So, but and I realized just talking and what he did in school and classes he took and Boys State, I knew he was a smart boy.
Mm-hmm. So do you remember your first kiss?
I think it was in the car. I don't think he walked me up to the house and kissed me.
Uh-huh.
I think he kissed me in the car, and then he walked me up to the house.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, when did you know you were in love with the guy?
It didn't take long. It didn't take long. I'm guessing maybe 2 weeks.
Really? You just felt this connection?
I just felt this connection that he was the one. Yeah.
Did you tell people you thought he was the one?
I told Mother, and Mother said yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Dad? Did you know she was the one right away?
Pretty much.
I mean, what kind of attracted you to her? Was it just she was pretty, or was it the band and the common stuff that way?
I think so.
Yeah.
I wanted to get out of the house more than anything. So I had this job working in a gas station, pumping gas. It was back in the day when you did that. wait to get off work. But then I had to drive all the way home back out in the country. It was like a 15-mile drive, 12-mile drive, something like that. So it was pleasant to be able to stop and chat with somebody. And I got to the point where I'd rather spend more time with her than going home.
That's
Don't need to
great.
talk, honey.
So how long did you guys date?
It was about 3 weeks when your dad asked me to marry him.
Uh-huh.
And of course, I said yes because I already knew I was in love with him, you know. And
3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah, 3 weeks.
I mean, weren't you kind of like, what's this guy thinking? 3 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Weren't you like, this is bizarre?
No,
No?
Not
No.
really.
not really.
I just seemed comfortable and
The only thing I thought was, how are we going to get married? I mean, he works in a gas station. I work at the Readmore at the newspaper. I don't make that much. I may have made 60 cents an hour then,
Yeah.
you know, and I know he didn't make much because
I
we
make
would,
50 cents now.
yeah, because we would pool our money together for gas money to go out and get a cup of coffee or a milkshake or whatever.
So where did you typically go? What was a typical date like? Where would you go?
Parkette.
Mostly Parkette.
Uh-huh. And
You know,
just
get
go
a
get
hot
a
dog or whatever.
a milkshake, a hot dog.
Yeah, and you could, you know, they played the pop songs, and of course, that's where the kids, they would go, you know, those who were driving, if it was jalopy clubs or whoever, they'd drive around, you know, the Parkette, and of course, everyone said, hey, Joe, hey, you know, and so-and-so's dating so-and-so, she's with him, and, you know, so it was kind of the hangout where you saw kids, and
Okay, so you graduated in June, and when was this when you first started meeting?
in 62.
62.
I just come back from 6 months away.
For basic training and stuff?
Mhm.
Okay, so 62 turns into 63. So you guys are dating then until you get married in January.
Yeah.
So what were you guys just dating during that time? Were you living with your mom or were
In 62, well, like I said, I thought, how are we going to get married? We don't have any money, and he didn't have a really good job. And Daddy told me he was going to re-enlist because there was no work there in Fairmont, unless he would maybe try to get on the Owens in Illinois or the Westinghouse. He didn't want to do that. And so he said he was going to re-enlist. And of course, I had known at that time he'd already done National Guard. So he enlisted in March of 62.
Okay.
And then he went off to, I think it was Fort
Knox.
Knox.
Went back to Fort Knox.
And he had to go down, I think, to Fort Bragg too. No, he was supposed to maybe have to do some extra basic training, but he didn't have to because of the guards. I remember that.
I just got out of, basic and advanced infantry and all that.
Yeah.
So what were you doing during that time? Still working at the
I still
Readmore?
worked at the Readmore at the newspaper.
And then just wait for him to come
He-
back to, so you weren't dating anyone else while he was off it?
No. I wouldn't
Okay.
think that, yeah.
So what'd your friends think of you dating? Did they like him? Do you remember?
I don't know that very many of my friends knew him because we had only been dating a short period of time,
Yeah.
and then he was gone. You know, my girlfriend Esther Morgan, I mean, she had met him before,
Uh-huh.
and she thought he was very nice, you know, and that sort of thing. As far as other people meeting him, like Linda or Larry or Eileen, any of them, they had never met him before.
Okay. So it was 3 weeks before he said he wanted to marry you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then
So-
within a couple of weeks, I re-enlisted off to Fort Knox. I was down there 3 or 4 days,
Mm-hmm.
just getting clothing and equipment and all of that, and getting orders. And I got transferred to Missile Master up in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So I passing through Fairmont, stopped, and then went on to New Jersey. And then for the next year, every other weekend or so, I'm hitchhiking back from New Jersey to West Virginia.
To see her.
Hitchhike home, yeah, about every week, every other week, depends, you know, and he would send letters.
So this proposal at 3 weeks, was it more like, we're going to get married, or was it a will you marry me type
He
proposal?
said, asked me if I would marry me. He was in love with me and asked if I would marry me. I would marry him, and I said yes. That was it.
Did he have any type of ring or anything for
No
you at that time?
ring, no flowers, no, nothing,
No money.
no money.
So when did you get a ring?
I didn't get a ring. When we got married, of course, I had my wedding band that was we were married with, our wedding bands. And then when we had our first anniversary, your dad got me a wedding set with a diamond ring
Gotcha.
and another wedding band.
So did he give anything to you when you said yes? Later on, did he give you a pin or a little necklace or something?
Nope.
No. You just went on blind faith and
Blind faith. I guess I was in love.
that's great. So, were you surprised when he asked you?
Yes, I was.
But in shock or just wow?
Yeah, just wow. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, okay, obviously that's how you guys were thinking. What did your parents think? After 3 weeks, some guy says, I want to marry you, Esther.
Mm-hmm.
What did your mom and dad say?
Well, again, my mother said, you really love him. And I said, yes. And she said, he's going to be away for a while. We'll just have to wait and see how things happen here. Do you think she thought it was gonna? I think she thought when he went off to the military that, it would die and fade away.
Uh-huh. So, what about mom and pop? What did they say? Because that was kind of your father influence, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Pap was all right. Mom wasn't there a whole lot at that time because she was away helping take care of my Aunt Lois, who was ill. But Pap, he just kind of whatever you want, honey. I mean, that's the way he was. If you love him, that was it.
Okay.
He was a fluid guy.
Okay. So Dad's coming back in December, all through the fall of '62, coming back and forth.
Oh yeah.
And then
Summer, fall.
No, spring, summer, fall, and winter.
okay,
Yeah.
so all of '62, you're gone,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, except coming home for a weekend when he could.
Okay.
That was almost a great.
So there was no intention of you going up there right away or moving up the wedding, or why did you wait until '63 then?
Money.
Okay, money for the wedding.
Mhm.
So
Well, yeah, we had to have enough money. Daddy had, and remember that in '62 also, I had left the newspaper retail store and got on at Westinghouse.
okay,
So I was making pretty good money
okay,
then, and Daddy was saving money because he was living in the barracks,
hmm
and I was making good money, and so it was just to save money and then be able to get a place to live when we did get married, have enough money. So, yeah.
Did you ever take the bus up to
Yep.
see him?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I took the bus up one time, and I was so scared. I mean, because it was a long way, and I had to change buses in Philadelphia and Newark, I think, and bus stations and that sort of thing. I was a little scared. And I remember John's mom telling me, you will be fine, as long as you got a mouth, and can ask questions, you will be fine. It surprised me. It was her.
So were you allowed to stay at the base, or did you have to get an apartment or get a hotel or something?
No, we had, Daddy had friends who had apartments. Was it
We stayed with Pappy, didn't we?
Happy, and I can't remember her name. They were married, and they had a couch that we slept on.
Mhm.
Yeah, we both slept on the couch.
So you were able to get,
It's like a day bed out on the porch.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like a sunroom, like.
Okay. So when and where was your wedding?
The wedding was in Fairmont at the Free Methodist Church, and it was January 12th, 1963, at 7 o'clock in the evening.
How many people attended?
I don't know how many people exactly were there because I had an open church wedding. We didn't send out invitations per se, but it was in the newspaper and in the church bulletin that Esther and John were getting married on Saturday, and it was an open church, which means that anybody can come to the wedding.
Okay.
And then at that point, anybody could come to the reception.
Okay.
And the reception was down at my grandmother's house, and it was, wedding cake and punch and mince and nuts, and that was it.
Was it like the wedding receptions of today?
Nothing
The
like
the dancing and the drinking and all of
no,
the.
No, no.
Do you remember how many people came out to the house? Was that
It was pretty
it
full.
20,
was it mainly family and friends,
It
like
was
your
mostly-
cousins?
It was mostly family and friends, church people that went to the church with us. But John, of course, Daddy and his family, my mom, they had come down from Wheeling for the wedding. Aunt Jeannie and
Gus was there.
Daddy. John's parents were there. None of his brothers were there though, and there were some classmates of mine. Linda was there, Larry was there, and Esther and Holly, Mother, and some of her, Barbara Smith and Flora, and the friends of Mother's helped her, set up the cake table and that sort of thing, and they kind of stayed in the kitchen while the reception was going on, and I think they had some liquor that they toasted to drink with, and we had food, of course.
Were cakes the same? Were they like a multi-tier cake, like the white cakes, like they are today, or?
Mine was a square cake as opposed to a round wedding cake, and it was layers, and I think it had 3 or 4. I can't remember without looking at the picture, and it was very pretty. It was very pretty. I don't remember how it tasted, because it seemed like the evening went so quick. I just don't remember it. And I remember Mother saving the top piece in the freezer for a year.
Yeah.
And then after you defrost the refrigerator so many times, the cake would.
So you didn't have it for the first year anniversary?
I opened it up and I just kind of tasted it a little bit, and it didn't taste very good.
So it was kind of like Val's, the same type of deal, where they didn't get their cake because I remember the freezer got unplugged.
Yes, and so of course Daddy wasn't home even for that, and so I just went ahead and threw it away.
So what do you remember about the ceremony?
I remember, first of all, I remember getting ready. I remember Mother coming downstairs while I was getting ready and telling me that John wasn't there yet, and I got worried because he wasn't there yet. And I remember Holly and Esther, they were my attendants, and they helped me get dressed and tell me how pretty I was. And I remember my dad coming down.
Who was the maid of honor?
Esther was maid of honor.
Okay. So then your dad walked you down the aisle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He walked me down the aisle, and he was shaking. He was really kind of nervous, and but we made it through, and we made it down the aisle and everything. The ceremony was a normal ceremony, wedding ceremony, other than the Free Methodist Church did not believe in the ring ceremony, where you put the ring on
Yes.
and but the pastor kind of stopped right at that point, and we knew that he was going to stop at that point, and then we exchanged rings at that time, but without saying anything, out loud to anybody. And then during the ceremony, the light fell off the organ when the
Singer was turning the
soloist.
page for the organist.
Yeah, when the soloist turned the page.
Smack.
And we were kneeling at that time at the altar, and it just made the awfulest because it was a metal-like thing that attaches.
You know those little brass
Yes.
things that is
Yeah.
semicircle and it had like a fluorescent tube in it?
And it bang, 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 it's just falling down and hitting the floor, and I remember that, and I'm going, oh my God, what was that?
What do you remember about your dress?
My dress was borrowed. It was something borrowed. And I didn't have enough money to get a wedding dress. I mean, because I knew we were saving money, and so I could go to New Jersey and get a home with Daddy. And we just didn't have that much, And one of the girls I worked with in Westinghouse, she asked me, she says, have you got your dress yet? And I said, no. I said, I don't know what I'm going to wear, and because I don't have that much money. And she said, I have a dress you can wear. And I said, oh, you do? And she said, yes. And she said, I know it would fit you. And she wore it for, she was like a prom queen at Farmington High. And she, just like the year or so before. And she said, it would fit you, I know. And she said, I'll bring it to work tomorrow, and you take it home and try it on. And I did, and it fit me perfect.
No alterations or anything?
I didn't have to do hemming, nothing. I wore my shoes I wore for prom, and my veil I had taken to Jones's department store. That's where you could buy wedding dresses and wedding veils. And I had a tiara that Larry had got me for when we went to prom in our junior year at high school. And it was a little rhinestone tiara. And of course I still had it. So I took it with me and asked the seamstress at the bridal store if there was some way we could use that to make a veil, for my dress. And she said, yes, I could fix that with no problem. She fixed it, didn't charge me 1 penny. Not 1 penny. And I still have it.
Okay, so what's the story? Something borrowed, something blue?
Something old, something new, something borrowed, something
Okay,
blue.
so what were each of those for in your wedding? Do you remember?
Something old was probably my shoes.
I thought that was your Bible, or the hanky that was in the Bible.
Well, something new was the Bible that Esther gave me.
Oh, okay.
Esther Morgan, my maid of honor, had given me a Bible to carry, and I had hankies put in it that belonged to my grandmother and my great-grandmother, and that was my new. Something borrowed,
What was blue?
was my garter was blue.
Okay.
And Daddy took it off. I remember standing on the steps to go upstairs, and he took my garter off before I went up to change clothes to leave on our honeymoon.
So this was. Do you do that at the? Did you do that at the reception?
Yeah,
Or
it was
okay.
in the house. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would not be a thing you did in church.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the borrowed was my dress.
So after you got married, that would have been on a Saturday, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you stay in a hotel and then um, go on a honeymoon right away?
We didn't have a car,
Okay.
and so Nami had a car, and so she let us use her car, and we stayed in Fairmont down at the Belmont Motel, which was a very nice hotel. Um, and in fact, they even took my corsage that I had made for my bouquet and put it in their freezer at the restaurant downstairs and kept it for me while we were there, which was very nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and we stayed there, and I think we stayed there the weekend. I think 2 days, and then on Monday, I think we went to Pittsburgh on Monday, and we first we thought weren't going to tell Mother, but I said I thought we needed to talk to Mother before we took the car to Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
And so we did, and she said it was fine, of course, to be careful.
Yeah.
And so we went on to Pittsburgh, and then we came back from Pittsburgh in Wheeling, and we stayed in Wheeling, and then we crossed.
Stay with Aunt Jeannie, or?
No, we stayed in a hotel there in Elm Grove. We did stop and see Aunt Jeannie, and we took the back roads and went over to Clarksburg from Wheeling, and we ended up spending a night at Grandpa Gus's house in Bridgeport as we came back to Fairmont. That was her honeymoon.
A lot different than what McKenna is doing for her wedding.
Absolutely.
So
I'm thinking counting gas, food, and everything, and a motel room. That wedding probably laid us back about $100.
At least.
Hey, 2 months' pay.
right. So
Yeah.
I guess it's all equal, but
Yeah.
so do the two of you have a song?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
And what is that song?
Moon River with Andy Williams.
So how did that become your song?
If I remember, it just seemed like that's when it came out during that time, and it was on the radio, and it seemed like it played a lot when we were dating.
It was a make-out song. You could dance to it, slow dance. Yeah.
So let's talk about the first year of marriage. Where did you live?
Well, I didn't get to go to New Jersey to be with Daddy until April of '63.
Okay. So he got married basically on a leave.
Yeah.
Came home for the weekend.
He had a little longer. He had about a week off leave there.
Okay.
And of course I was working yet, so we needed more money. I didn't want to quit my job yet, so we were trying to sell. It wasn't until April of that year that I moved to New Jersey with Daddy. And it seemed like when he came home during that period from January to April, every time he would go back, he would take something with him. Now, it could have been a blanket, it could have been pots and pans, it could have been silverware, because we didn't have a car.
Right, so just little by little,
Yeah.
you accumulated stuff.
Yes.
Was that when I was driving back and forth with Charlie?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he
Who's
was,
Charlie? Army buddy or?
Yeah,
Charlie
he
is
was
Army.
at the same base I was at.
and he lived
And
right
he
down the
lived
road
Just down from Elm Grove.
from Aunt
And
Jeannie.
Roney's Point or something like that.
Yes, where the church was, where we went for Aunt Jeannie's after she passed away,
Mm-hmm.
and had dinner. Well, he was from that area, and so Daddy would meet him at Aunt Jeannie's house to go back. When they would go back on Sunday.
Yeah, I
when they
usually
came
get
home.
my dad to drive me up to Wheeling.
He would drive up, or I think maybe Mommy drove once,
Could be,
and maybe
yeah.
your dad, my dad, we would drive up, and then when when we went to leave, when I went to move with Daddy up to New Jersey, of course we both went, and I remember having a suitcase or a box of things that I needed to, like sheets or whatever, towels, plus my clothes. And Charlie had a big car. He had a big car.
So just packed it
Big
full.
trunk, yeah. And it was pretty well loaded.
So then you guys, when you go up there, now it's what, April of '63?
Uh-huh.
So, okay, so now you are just real close to, were you pregnant yet or not?
No, but I think I got pregnant the night I went. Because it was April 1st,
Uh-huh.
and Valerie was born December
29th.
29th.
Yeah, so pretty good chance, right?
Pretty good chance.
So that first apartment, did you have furniture or was it a furnished apartment or what was it?
It wasn't an apartment, it was a little house.
It had been a store,
Yeah, at one
like
time.
a little candy store or something at one time.
And it was right across from the fire department in Highlands, New Jersey, right down from the base. And it had one big room, and it had like day beds, two of them. And one was on one wall, one was on the other. We used one for a bed, one for a couch. And we had a dresser and a closet and a table of some kind with a lamp on it, and we ended up getting a TV, and we had a TV at the bottom or in the corner. It had a kitchen, very small kitchen, smaller than the one I've got now, and it had a very tiny bathroom with no sink in it. It had a back door with a backyard that it shared with the landlady who lived next to us. She was an older lady. She was very nice. And our rent was $50 a month, and that included all our utilities.
And how much was Dad making at the time?
$50 a month.
So basically 100% of your...
Well, I had quarters allowance because when you're married, you end up getting some money for your spouse. So I was probably getting about 90 and probably netting 80.
Okay.
So we were on a very, very slim budget.
So if you go up there in April, did you work at all?
No, because it was no time I realized I was pregnant.
Okay.
And I wasn't working. So, no, but we watched our pennies.
So did you decorate the house yourselves, or was it pretty...
No.
Didn't have money to decorate? Or...
Didn't really have money to decorate, no, and it was already, I kept it clean,
Okay.
and the flooring throughout the whole place was 12-inch tiles, and they were black and white, and I went on my hands and knees and scrubbed them with a brush and Brillo pads, because they weren't white when I moved in there, and I tried to keep it clean and keep the curtains washed and things like that, and try to keep it nice and put placemats on the table in the kitchen and that sort of.
So what'd you eat for meals there? Did you guys grill out? Did you?
No, you didn't
We
grill.
had a grill.
No?
No, we didn't grill. No, remember ever grilling.
Did you cook? So you cooked all the meals?
I
So
cooked.
like, did you eat on the base and then come home? Like, did you eat there for lunch, or
No.
was it close that you came? Were you coming back and forth during the day?
I
or
think
no?
I ate mess hall, didn't I, for lunch?
You ate the lunch at the mess hall.
Yeah, I didn't come home
He didn't
for
come
lunch.
home for lunch. He come home for dinner, and of course breakfast. And on the weekends, when he was playing with the band up at the NCO club on Saturday, we would eat dinner on Saturday night. It was the treat to go to the NCO club and eat.
Steaks were cheap. You get
Yeah.
a steak for like $1.
You got
Mhm.
a steak dinner for $1, salad, French fries, and it was a ribeye or a Delmonico, one of the two.
For a buck.
For a buck.
But if
and
that's all you were making, that was an expensive meal.
That's right. That's right.
But see, I was making a little extra money with the band, so
Yeah.
we make maybe $4 or $5 a night each. You know.
Yeah.
And you pump it right back into food and some drinks or something.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and you drank, and believe it or not, even, back then, I would have a screwdriver, and here I am pregnant, and smoking,
You just think how different.
yeah, how different things
So-
are.
So were you a good cook at first?
I was a really pretty good cook, except one time, we had a get together with all the guys and their wives, and because that was family, and we had Easter dinner together, and I made a pineapple upside down cake.
Okay.
Only it got a little too done.
Okay. Do you remember the pineapple upside down cake? Well, you burn it good, huh?
I burn it, but I still took it to the function, and I remember Pappy, laughing about it and everything. But he said it was really good. He says as long as you scraped off the burnt part.
Trying to remember, there's Bruce and Susie. I don't remember Pappy's wife's name. Do you?
I don't remember her name.
There was Herb and Herb Shaw,
yeah.
and Herb had been drafted, and he was like, I'm like 22 maybe, and Herb had to be.
He was
old. He was like
He and Pappy
33,
both
44.
were,
Yeah,
yeah.
They were both up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I can't remember her
let's
name
see,
either.
Who else was
And
there?
Eleanor and Dave.
Eleanor and Dave Sloat.
Yeah. And there was another couple that lived up the other hill where we went after the.
Oh yeah.
After
We had a party up there one time, and somebody burnt one of their, dropped a cigarette on their sofa, and
Yeah.
never owned up to it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I can't remember his
We
name.
went to their house. They invited everybody up for their house for scrambled eggs and breakfast,
We've
at
been
3
drinking
o'clock
all
in the
night.
morning because we've been drinking all night, and and everybody went there, and somebody burned a hole
In the couch.
in the couch. Yeah, but they never said who it was.
So did you guys cook together, or did you do all the cooking?
I did the cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you playing in a band in Fairmont before you were in the military, or just when you went to New Jersey?
I started playing in a band when I was in a senior in high school. But we never had a gig, but we were practicing. Had,
So a true garage band.
well, it was, and that's where we played, down in the garage. But I had two brothers that had moved into town. It was my senior year, and they had just come in. They were trying to make friends, and they had a cool custom car. I mean, it had French headlights and all that stuff that you did back then. They lived down on what's the road that goes out past your grandmother's?
East Grafton Road.
East Grafton Road, but on out, and not far from where Charlie Morrison lived. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a guitar player, the older brother. The younger brother was a drummer. And they knew I was in the band, and he said, "Here, I've got this guitar," and it was a bass guitar, and see what you can do with it. Well, I picked it up, and I thought, I don't know what to do with this thing, But now I'm hitting some notes anyway. So I said, "You mind if I take this home and work on it a little bit?" And it's fine, it's cool. It was black, had big horns on it. I remember that. But what brand it was, I have no idea.
We'll talk more about this.
So
We'll talk more about this next week. So
and
I
then-
got all kinds of questions for the band. So.
And then when I came back from the service, that's when I got together with my best man, who was a drummer in a marching band. So he had a drum kit, and that's when we started Black Knights.
So, did you go see the band play much?
Mm-mm.
No, in New Jersey you didn't go.
Oh yeah, in New Jersey, I was there every time. I mean, every week. even when they had a private.
All the
party.
wives and
Yeah.
stuff hung out together.
Yeah, we all hung out together.
So did you have many close friends up there that you hung out with outside of going to the club? Well, you were pregnant, so what?
Pregnant, no money, no car, so you figured it out.
Yeah.
So what did you do for fun? Did you go into the city at all, or did you go
We
to New
went
York?
to the city one time, maybe a couple times, but one time I remember going to the city with Bob and Linda Frank, and Linda's dad, her mother and dad we went to see. They lived in a big apartment, and her dad was a musician. I remember
Hank
that.
Lawson.
Hank Lawson, and he was on NBC on Johnny Carson's band, I believe.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
said the world. I've got his album, World's Greatest Jazz Band, and they were good.
Yeah, he was very nice, and of course they offered us, drinks and stuff. But I remember us sightseeing, the four of us, Linda and Bob, and us
Downtown
sightseeing
New York City.
and riding the subway, and going from one place to another. And I remember there were some guys that were making remarks to Bob as we were walking down the sidewalk. There were a couple guys that made remarks to Bob, and I thought, well, what the heck? And then I realized that they were trying to pick him up,
Oh.
Yeah, but I had never experienced that kind of a thing, and I was quite surprised. I mean, here they were trying to pick him up, and he was with his wife.
That's funny. So, how involved were your parents and in-laws in your marriage? Did you ever feel like they were interfering?
I don't think I felt that. There maybe have been a time where Daddy maybe have felt that with my parents. I don't think, maybe a couple times Daddy's mother maybe said a couple things that that I didn't particularly care for.
About you?
Well, like when he came back from Korea, and I wanted to meet him at the airport by myself with Valerie. And I think she got hurt, though, that I said that to her, and so then she was kind of standoffish to me for a while.
She had been replaced.
Yeah.
Did you ever get mad for an extended period of time at her? Or
No.
vice versa?
I don't think for very long I would get mad, but I did get over it, and she probably did too,
So what was you said a lot of this time you didn't have a car.
right?
So what was the first car that you bought together? Did Dad buy the car? Or did you guys say, let's get a car?
I think Daddy bought the car, and I didn't even know he bought the car.
Okay.
And I think he paid $50
We wanted to
for
go to
it.
West Virginia. It was that summer.
Yeah.
And somebody had a 50, I don't know where we got it. It was a 53 Buick. I remember that. And this was 62.
Three.
No, I left for Korea in 63. So it was in the summer of 62.
Left for Korea.
No, I'm sorry, 64. You're right. It was summer of 63. So it was a 10-year-old car, but it was an old, it was heavy. You remember the type
Yeah.
where it was all steel.
It's a big car.
And it got us around, but it really wasn't built for going all the way to West Virginia, and it didn't.
Broke down on you a lot, I take it.
Well, it was leaking oil.
Leaked oil.
I didn't have money to get the car fixed. I said, we'll just run it until it runs in the ground, and it did. So.
And we went home. We were going to West Virginia. It was in the summer, and of course I was pregnant, and it was hot. We didn't have air conditioning in the car, and we'd have to stop every so often to put another can of oil in the car, And this one time we stopped, and Daddy Daddy had the hood up and was putting oil in, and a guy stopped to see if we needed help. And because I was standing outside the car also, because like I said, it was hot. And Daddy told him no, we were fine and everything, just needed some oil put in the car. And he turned around, and Daddy thanked him and everything, and he handed me the money. He handed me a $5 bill, and he said, "Well, just in case you need something."
How
And I
nice.
didn't
All
know
it
him
was.
from
What a nice act of kindness just for
Yes.
somebody.
yes.
Hey, that's 20 gallons of gas, man.
I mean, it came in real handy, and I think we got around where Aunt Lois lived in Pennsylvania, in Connellsville, and when we broke down,
Did die.
it died, and we had to call Uncle Earl to see if he could come and get us, and then we could have Nami come up to Uncle Earl's house to get it. And as it turned out, Mother was on her way up to visit them anyway that same day. So we left it out there. Then we had to get a tow truck to bring it back to Fairmont, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of truck to bring it back to Fairmont, and then we sold it or
I think
junked
so.
it or whatever.
Junked it there.
So
I'm trying to remember how we got back to New Jersey. Charlie
Probably Charlie.
and Dad.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, what was a typical day for you like when you were first married? Obviously, you were in New Jersey, and you were pregnant pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you do all day long?
Well,
Chores.
chores, yeah, the normal chores, make the bed, run the sweeper, whatever. I didn't have carpet, but
Yeah.
sweep, mop, clean.
Did you have to do iron Dad's uniforms, or did those go to the dry cleaners?
He had dry cleaners, but I also ironed for him too,
Uh huh.
some of them.
Who was responsible for the finances? When you-
Daddy.
Okay.
Well, we both were, but Daddy's the one that paid the bills and that sort of thing. But when because we were on a budget.
Yeah.
We had the yellow ledger pad that with columns and where our money was going, and we would write down every time we got a popsicle.
Yeah.
Because I craved popsicles for Valerie, and it was a nickel
Yeah.
for a popsicle.
Would you say it was tough being a newlywed at 19 years old?
It was tough because of the money situation, not having that much money. As far as the maturity of me and your dad, I think it was fine because I think we were mature enough to do things.
Did you fight a lot the first year? You know how first year marriage is always kind of tough for a lot of people. If so, what did you bicker over? Did you bicker over like finances or moving or cleaning
I
or
remember that.
being a...
I don't remember us bickering over things like that.
I know that I had a little scratch pad or booklet or something like that where we kept track of the daily money.
Yeah, that's what Mom was just talking about for the popsicle.
I mean, down to the pennies.
So, do you remember telling Dad that you were pregnant?
I told him I thought I was,
Uh-huh.
and we had to go down to Fort Monmouth to go to a doctor
Uh-huh.
to find out for sure, and they did the blood tests, and he of course was with me, and we had, I think probably Susie and Bruce took us down because we had to go there for the commissary to go to groceries, so we kind of worked it all in, and I remember coming out and telling him, yeah, we're gonna have a baby.
Do you think you were more excited or more nervous?
Excited.
What about Dad?
I think he was excited too. If he was nervous, he didn't show it.
Uh-huh. What did your parents think?
Mother was happy.
Uh-huh.
And Daddy said, well, good for you, congratulations. Daddy's mom and Dad were ecstatic.
Uh-huh.
You know, and Dad said, I hope it's a girl. I hope it's a girl, because he had 4 boys.
That makes sense. So, do you remember you and Dad, just based on how we are today, but back then, do you remember discussing world events and politics?
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah. We a lot of that probably because during that first year in November, of course, was when President Kennedy was assassinated. And I think we talked a lot about things then, because what's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and Russia was, you know, all that was going on, and then the just everything. What was it going to do as far as Daddy? Would it cause him to go overseas? Vietnam had started. Um, uh, we talked a little bit, maybe not as much as today,
Mm-hmm.
No.
you know.
So, how would you say you and Dad, and I'm going to ask you the same question next week, Dad, but how did you remember you and Dad reacting to the assassination of President Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis? Those were fairly close together in that.
Cuban Missile Crisis, I was home for that. I remember being home and talking to your dad over the phone about the Cuban crisis, and he said it was, you know, how bad it was. He wasn't supposed to tell me that, but he did. And as far as the assassination of Kennedy, I saw it on TV live, you know, when they were everything, and I was stunned, and about watching it and people how they were reacting. And
So you were in New Jersey at the time.
I was in New Jersey. Daddy was working, and I called him. Because I thought he might not be home for dinner tonight, you know, because of this, and they'll be on alert. The whole base would be on alert. And I called him to tell him, or you know, talk to him about that. And he did not know about President Kennedy being assassinated. They did not know it yet, and which I found strange, very strange, with the fact that here they are at the Missile Master base in New Jersey, that is the defense system for the whole East Coast of the United States, New York, you know, and I just was in shock that they didn't know.
Well, I suspect command staff knew fairly quickly, but they weren't going to let it out to enlisted right away. You know.
Did you and Dad ever disagree about politics or about candidates, or do you think you always voted the same? Was there ever a time where you liked one candidate and he liked a different?
I don't think so. Maybe during some primaries or something,
Uh-huh.
you know, maybe something during the years, but anything serious like that, no.
Have you voted a Republican Party for most of your entire life?
Yes.
Did you vote for Kennedy?
No.
No, because being a Democrat or being Catholic, what was kind of the feeling? Do you remember that being a discussion back then?
I remember it was a discussion, definitely, between Mom and Pap and the church,
Mm-hmm.
the religion part. But I did it only because of the Republican. I didn't vote for him because of that.
Okay.
Who ran against him? Stevenson?
I don't even
No, Nixon did.
Nixon.
Nixon Kennedy debates.
I believe in '64, Dad was ordered to Korea with the Army. Obviously, I know your dad left you young, but were you ever worried or scared that your marriage would fall apart when he was gone?
I wasn't really worried about it falling apart or between us as a family. but I worried that something might happen to him in Korea, you know, and and would they would he end up in Vietnam after all? Because I knew Vietnam was going on. You know, I knew that he had told me about when he was on his way over there. They even thought possibly, you know, is that where we're going for sure? You know, and so on. But as far as the relationship between the two of us, no, I never worried about that.
How long was he gone?
About 15 months.
15 months.
About
And Valerie was
3 weeks when he left.
okay.
3 weeks.
And then he comes back and
She's 15 months old.
So obviously that had to be tough. So talk about life when he was gone. I mean, were you frustrated? Were you lonely? Were you proud? I mean, what were your thoughts?
Again, Vietnam was going on, and so a lot of your mind was still with Vietnam.
Even though that was just starting.
It was just starting. It was still there, and it probably had a lot to do with the fact that military. Daddy was in the military, and maybe that's probably why. As far as
You have to understand, John, Vietnam was going on well before that.
yeah,
I was a classified documents clerk.
so I
So
knew.
I got all the poop.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not supposed to tell anybody that stuff, but I was sharing that with your mom.
He shared that
So-
with me.
Okay, so how did you communicate? I mean, the kids today, when they're overseas, they get their cell phones, they can text,
Yeah,
you know, they can even dial on satellite phones, even from basically the front lines. There are ways to communicate back home to talk to loved ones.
right.
How did you communicate with Dad, and how often did you ever get to talk to him via telephone?
Never talked to him on the phone after he left the States. He called me from California before he left to go to fly out of California. I didn't talk to him again until he was in Hawaii when he was coming home. And he would send recordings, tape recordings of his voice, and talk to Valerie and me. And but it was very difficult because his recorder and my recorder, they weren't in the sync or the same kind of stuff. So you couldn't really make out what he was saying, just bits and pieces of things.
Here's the deal. It's cheap recorder. Okay, use a little 2-inch reel of tape. So you didn't have speed control on it. So when it first starts, you know, one side's going fast and the other one, you know, and then it picks up speed as you know, because it's a constant speed. So that tape begins off, and then at the end of it, you know, you're talking real high pitched.
Okay.
All right. So when I would get the recordings back that Mom made of her and Valerie, I'd start them off. We had a variable speed control, and I had to start them off fast, and then as it went along, I'd turn it down to slow. She couldn't do that.
Yeah. So
I
was he sending you letters at the same time?
And he sent me letters every single day.
So every day you got a letter.
Yeah.
How far
2
behind?
on Monday.
So how far behind was it that you got the letter? So if he
What was that,
sent,
about a week?
so it took about a week for it to get
Yeah.
to. So it wasn't like it was months behind, like it
No.
would have been in World War II or
No.
something like that.
No. And I tried to write him as often as I could. I couldn't do it every day because of taking care of Valerie and being a new baby. And of course, I was helping take care of the house also,
Mm-hmm.
and cooking. And because I was staying, Valerie and I were staying with Mom and Pap and Nami and Gary and Alan, of course, were there. And so I didn't really have time, or maybe I should say, did you make time? Could you have made time? But I wrote as much as I could, you know, on a regular basis.
So did you get a letter almost every day in the mail?
Yeah, like I said, on Monday I get 2. You know,
We
because
still have them.
yeah, and I still have them.
So when we find those someday, Valerie and I,
We think we're gonna burn them before.
we're gonna say, should we burn them? Or are there some?
Oh, there's a lot of personal stuff in there.
We thought maybe we should burn them before anything happens to us.
So what you're saying is we shouldn't read them.
No.
Would we see a different side of you?
You might.
should.
You might.
We're ornery kids like everybody else.
I mean, yes, because remember there are some very personal things in there, and between the two of us that we wrote to each other, and but just like any other married couple that's only been married a year and then they're separated for a year.
Yep.
You know, it was hard.
So you talked about Vietnam earlier. How did you feel about him being in the military as Vietnam was approaching? Did you want him to re-enlist, or did you want him home and out of the Army?
I liked the fact that he was in the Army. I mean, I thought it was a good thing. It was a career. I think he loved it, what he was doing in the military. And, you know, I mean, I've heard of people making it a career and you get pension and all that. But that was before he went to Korea. And then that time, in that 15 months of him being away, I wanted him home. I did not want him to re-enlist.
You didn't want to go wherever he was at as a married couple.
I would have, yes, I would have.
If he was stateside.
Well, even if he was overseas, if you could go, you know, because you could back then, people who went to Germany, wives went to Germany, but you couldn't go to Korea. Wives couldn't go to Korea,
Okay.
you know. But it's just, I think I'd had enough, you know. I had gone through some things with my brothers and living at home and again, and some scary things with Valerie with her feet and having to handle all that alone, you know. And so I was ready for him to be home and help me.
Yeah, I wondered if you were mad, you know, like, you know, not mad at him personally, but mad at the situation. Like,
Yeah.
I'm doing all this on my own,
Yeah.
and he's off playing with the guys and playing in the band and playing Army Man.
I would just get, you know, down and sad, and I wasn't really mad at him. I was just mad at the situation.
So you talked a little bit ago about Mom not coming, that you just wanted to go see him when he came home from Korea.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about that day?
Oh, how excited I was.
Uh-huh.
I was so excited.
So where did he fly into? Did you meet him in
Morgantown.
in-
He came
Was
into
it Morgantown? I was thinking it was Bridgeport.
Morgantown. You
Okay.
left out of Bridgeport.
Okay.
And he came into Morgantown, and Dad, of course, I didn't drive. You know, I didn't have a license. And at the time, I was living with Mom and Dad, because I had moved in with them like in November, and this was in March. Daddy came home, and so I asked Dad, you know, I said, will you take me to the airport when John comes home and meet him at the airport? And he said, of course, you know.
Right.
And so it was just me and Dad and Valerie in the front seat going down, and I was trying to keep her just so, you know, because I wanted her to be so pretty. You know, I was fixing the bow in her hair again and making sure there was nothing on her shoes, and her dress didn't get wrinkled as she was sitting on my lap, you know.
Was she good when she saw him?
Oh yes, in the airport, we were sitting in the airport, and same way in the airport, I was just trying to keep her, you know, from not getting crawling on the floor and getting dirty, and she'd go from Dad to me, and at the same time, I tried to keep me from not getting messed up, and so on. But when he landed, it was like we were sitting in this waiting room or at the airport, and the door or sliding door was there, and it was like straight ahead of us in the waiting room, and I could see him or see people coming down the steps.
So you were in the terminal. You weren't on the tarmac or something like that.
But it was like you just walked out of those sliding glass doors and just a little ways, and there was the plane. I mean, it just kind of drove right up close.
Yeah, the plane pulled up like 20 yards, 30 yards from the entrance to the airport.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no security like there is today. Yeah, you just went outside and greeted people. As they got off the plane. I remember that you bringing Valerie up, and then she ran toward me.
Yeah. What happened is I had taken her. Dad was standing or sitting there, and I took her. And as I saw him coming, I was still inside, and of course it was March. It was still a little chilly,
Yeah.
And I had taken Valerie's coat off of her, winter coat and hat and everything, and I didn't have a coat and hat. And as he's coming, I sat her down to go to him, and as she stood up, and he's of course saying her name, and he bent down, he kind of stooped down, and she smiled. And she started going, but she started going too fast,
She wipe out?
And she wasn't walking very long. She hadn't been walking very long. And she had on Mary Jane shoes, patent leather shoes. And they were slippery on that tile floor in the airport, And so she's trying and like this, and then she just went down, and her little butt went up in the air, But she didn't hit herself or anything. And
so she wasn't crying.
She wasn't crying, and Daddy went a little faster and picked her up. He picked her up, and just held her in his arms like this,
Was he in military uniform when he came?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
He was in his military uniform, and he had this red handlebar mustache.
And what did you think when you saw that?
I didn't like it.
Were you like, oh, brother?
I did not like that at all. And I told him he was going to shave it off. That's about the first thing I said to him, I think, after I kissed him. And I told him, I said, you're going to shave that off, or we're not going to bed together. That's what I told him.
I'm guessing he shaved.
Shaved it off, yes.
I started that thing before Raymond Burr came to our base. Perry Mason.
Yeah.
Ironsides. And I think I'd worked on that for about 6 months. And heavy wax and all of that. So it came up in a barbershop quartet curl.
So did it take a while to get readjusted? Just like, to get reacclimated back to a relationship after, because you've done your thing with Val for a year and a half, and how do you blend that in? Now, was he out of the service when he so he was done, so he actually probably didn't have to wear his uniform home. You probably just...
It's the only clothes I had, John.
Yeah, that's what he had. When he came home, of course, when we left the airport, we went back to Fairmont, and we went to Mom and Dad's house so that, Daddy could see Mom and these brothers, and then we went on over to my house so we could see my mother and Mom and Pap. And then we went back to Dad and Mom's house, and Mom and Dad took care of Valerie for 2 or 3 days, and Daddy and I took off and we went to, I think we went to Belmont. We went to the same place we had spent our wedding night at.
Mm-hmm.
We went there.
You just spent some time together.
For 2 or 3 days, and so that way we wouldn't have to worry about Valerie, because we knew she'd be taken care of and all that, and they knew where we were, But we spent a couple days there, and our intention was to spend time there until with Mom and Dad, staying with them, because that's where Valerie and I had been for about 4 months, and I don't think we were there. Daddy was there a day, maybe 2 days, if that, after we came back from our little couple days away, and he said, we got to get out of here.
You got to get out.
We got to get out of here.
So did you go to an apartment or in a house right after that? Do you remember?
We got an apartment, but Daddy didn't even have a job yet.
Okay.
I had some money then.
He had a little money from getting
Because
out.
Esther had saved up. I was sending her money home every month.
Yeah.
Almost my whole paycheck.
Okay.
So we had money saved. I mean, not a lot, but we had some money saved.
So talk about buying your first house. So Dad comes home in, this is now 65. You come back from Korea, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was born December 63. So now it's probably like summer of 65.
All 64 went by. I came home in spring of,
Okay, so now we're in 65.
yeah.
Okay, you got a little one.
Mm-hmm.
You're in an apartment probably for a year.
We were in the apartment. Maybe 6 months, maybe a little longer.
And then did you buy a house?
No. Then we rented another house.
Okay, so let's talk about when you made that decision to buy your first house.
Well,
Do you remember when that was?
It was in 66, but we didn't move in until 67.
Okay. Did you build the house or was?
No. Your father was working for People's Life Insurance Company. He got a job with them. He was working for them, and I think the people that owned the house, he may have had them insured and found out that their house was for sale and everything, and he told me about it, and it was for sale, and he thought it'd be it was a little, had enough room, and at that time you had already been born, and it was in 66. But
Now it's the fall of 66.
Yeah, and but we didn't move until later. It was like spring of 67.
Probably waiting for them to move or.
When they moved, and we got,
Well, they were building a new house out in Whitehall.
Do you remember what you paid for the house?
Oh, yeah.
I think it was 11,000.
11,000.
So what's the house payment on $11,000? Probably
$112 a month.
$112 a month. That's funny. So were you close to your neighbors there, or did you kind of do your own thing because you had 2 kids and you're just busy raising kids? He's out selling insurance.
Yeah, but you were friends with the neighborhood, and everybody had kids, and the kids all played together, and and there were the bickering things that would go on, or you get mad at one of the kids for something, but it was all right.
So I know we always used to go see Grandma and Grandpa, right? I mean Bud and your mom and dad. So when you get this new house, did they come out to the house much?
No.
Okay. They never came to the house.
Not much. Mom and Dad came over. I mean, maybe a holiday or something like that.
Dad's mom and dad.
Uh-huh.
But you never said, hey, we're newlyweds, we want to have Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner.
No, we would go there usually.
Okay.
We wouldn't have room for it.
Yeah, we didn't have that much.
Table with 4 chairs, and had kids and John, we were stuffed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Naomi, at that time, she didn't have a car at that time, and she was living with Mom and Pap, and but she didn't, and she worked. She was working at Owens, so she she didn't seem to have enough time either. But like when we put the roof on the house, put a new roof on the house, Dad was over there and helped your dad, put the new roof on, and that was when man landed on the moon, and they came off the
I'm
roof.
on the roof.
See, and I had a question about that. I was going to say, yeah, how was Dad for doing projects around the house? Was he handy, or did you want his dad there if it was going to be a big job? So that was a perfect segue for that. Or do you remember any big house projects like painting or putting up a fence or anything like that?
Yeah.
What was the big project?
Putting up
Was
the
it
fence and putting up the electric balls and where you're going to close the eaves.
We redecorated the house. When the roof went, I had this idea, and it was cool, that instead of having, because the eaves came, the siding came up, and the roof didn't extend. And I liked an extended roof, so it was like a little shade, that you had an eave under there. So I'm thinking, I sat down with a piece of paper and I drew out, pointed, so the roof, went out like that, instead of, being flat. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And I built, on each end, using 2x4s, I built a frame, and then we bolted it into the house, and then got some plywood, cut it into sheets, into triangular sheets, ended up extending the roof whenever we, replaced the roof.
So did you do that, or did your dad kind of?
No, I did that.
He did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the front of the house, we thought, what can we do different out here? So we found some of these globes, okay? And there were 3 of them, and they staggered, long one, medium size, and short one. I thought that looked pretty cool. So we painted the house. I don't know what color it was before. We painted it
green before.
It was green. We painted it a blue-gray.
Dark.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we painted, you wanted orange, so you got an orange that was a post-toward paint, but that's one you picked out.
So you let us choose what we want.
Always for your rooms, yeah.
Yeah.
What
If
about
you
red,
wanted-
purple?
Yeah, if Valerie wanted purple, or and you did the same thing in Omaha.
Well, obviously, Dad got into insurance sales after the Army. I know that for Dad having a career. So did you like that as a career for him? Did you like the hours, or did you want him home more?
I didn't like the hours because he worked a lot of evenings and he was late, not coming home for supper, that sort of thing. But as far as the business itself, it was a good business. It was a profitable business at times, and then there was other times it wasn't so good.
Sales,
I was going to say, did you ever wish he would just go out and get a, quote, regular job
And
as opposed to a commission job?
Yeah, there were times 9 to 5. I wished he worked, and I wished it was a salary, and you knew all the time how much money you would. But then again, it was always nice when you had that commission job
You got
that
the
you
extra.
got the extra money and you could do something special.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah, that's definitely the life of a salesperson.
that's right, and he was good at it.
So, do you ever remember Dad doing a project and he maybe got in over his head? You know, doing some type of project around the house where he's like, oh boy, I screwed this up.
I really don't remember.
I think,
anything.
I'm thinking back on that. I think that we ended up, because I couldn't raise those 2x4s with the bracing and everything up, because each of them weighed like 60, 70 pounds. I think Dad ended up having to help me
Oh yeah, Dad helped you with that
put
because
that on,
it was
because
on the roof.
he was helping me replace the roof.
Yeah, and Dad could put that big back of shingles on his one shoulder
Yeah,
to climb
was
that ladder. I mean, he was
amazing.
strong. You know,
What year was that?
that was in '67,
Okay, so he was 64 years old.
8, 9.
And
something
could
like
still lug it around like it
Yeah.
was nothing.
that. Yeah,
Right up that ladder he went
Yeah.
with a 50, 60 pound bale of shingles on his shoulder. I couldn't do that.
yeah. It was amazing.
So, how did you feel? So you're in that house for a while, and then obviously we got to a point where Dad went to Mutual of Omaha and got the offer to go to Omaha. So, how did you feel about moving away for the second time? Did you just follow him blindly, or did you have any say in the matter?
Well, he was the breadwinner, and we talked about it, and I would go wherever he went, or whatever he decided to do, I would do. I was not happy leaving Fairmont
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want to leave my family, or his family. Everything I knew, again, I had done that for a little while, and
Except now you got kids.
but now I was worried about my kids because they wouldn't have their grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And that bothered me a lot because of the relationship I had with my grandparents. And I wanted that for them.
So when you went out there, did you assume you would end up back in West Virginia again? That it was just going to be a short stint?
I figured, I knew from what Daddy had told me about the way Mutual of Omaha did and the way you moved around and getting your own shop and being, in different areas of the country where you could be and how well you did, and then you could go on, and of course how well you did, and the bigger agency, the more money, and climbing the ladder,
Mm-hmm.
climbing the ladder, and I wanted that for him, because he worked so hard, but again, I didn't think we'd ever end up in Fairmont again.
So if we were there from 72 to 74 in Omaha, that's right when the women's rights movement was going on. Did that impact you and Dad's marriage, or were expectations changed, not just for you and your marriage, but for women in general, compared to I kind of call it the June Cleaver television stereotypes of the 1950s?
I don't think it bothered me as far as that, because some of it I thought women, if a woman was qualified for a particular job, she should have a job. She should get paid the same as anybody else should get paid. But as time went on, I didn't like the idea that women were getting too bold, I think, and especially when they started wearing pants. It just seemed like it changed. It's like they wanted to be more like a man, but yet they wanted to be treated like a woman. They wanted the doors open for them at times, but other times they would cut you out if you opened the door for them,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't particularly care for that at
Mhm.
all. It didn't affect me as far as my relationship with your father. I think,
What about friends? Do you think it impacted them at all with any of your friends? Like, did any of them get what we'd call liberal today? Any seriously women's activists, or did anyone?
they may have as time went on, but I think a lot of them probably felt the same as me when it first all started happening.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't like the idea of a woman being president of the United States. And I think, like I said, women should, if they're qualified for the job. But I do not like that because I just think a man is better to be a leader in the country. That's how I feel.
So, how did you feel about the subsequent moves to Virginia? Obviously, we moved a couple times in Virginia, and then when we moved up to Columbus.
When we moved to Virginia, I was happy because I know it was close back home. It was going to be closer to home. We
How far of a drive?
About 6.5, 7 hours.
Okay, so much closer than being in Omaha.
Oh yeah, because
Okay.
we drove home from Omaha a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was straight through most of the time too. After Daddy had CLU classes or exams, and but I liked the idea of coming back to Virginia. Virginia was we made some good friends in Virginia, and I think it was it was good and bad. It kind of put you and Valerie back, I think, a little bit with your studies in school. I think they were behind what they were in Omaha. But the idea that things seemed a little closer, a rural area, and people were closer and friendlier and wasn't a big city kind of feeling was good for you. And then when we moved to Columbus, I was happy we were going to Columbus because it made it even closer to get to West Virginia.
I'm trying to remember back. How often did you go back to West Virginia when you lived up here?
From here,
Yeah.
From
Would you say?
Columbus?
Yeah. Was it
Oh,
frequent or
8
not
to
frequent?
10 times a year.
Well, you got to remember in when we moved here in '77 and '8, Daddy's dad was sick,
Okay.
and so we did go home a lot during that period of time.
Okay.
You know, we would go home at Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter. I mean, we would go home on, and on this other weekends, and if something was going on or a birthday or something special,
Pretty much any 3-day weekend, we're out here.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And it
we
was
would
the
go
same way in
home.
Virginia.
Yeah.
You know,
So where would you say you were the happiest living with Dad? West Virginia, New Jersey, Nebraska, Ohio, South Carolina. Where were you the happiest?
I was very happy in New Jersey because number one, it was our first year of marriage, and so just being together, I was happy. As far as all the other places, I was happy at Little Turtle.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was because it was a new home we had built, and we had put so much into building it, through the whole process of picking things out. It was our first one that we did that too, It wasn't a ready-made house, and so we were happy there. And there were times in Charleston I liked too. Myrtle Beach and Myrtle's Inlet were nice because you had the beach and things to do and so on, and Daddy was there and so on. But there was a lot of other things going on, with family and illnesses and just everything. So, but I would say the first year and probably Little Turtle.
Mhm.
Although I was very happy when we first moved to East Murray too. I gotta say that too.
we had some good times there.
Yeah.
What do you think when you say, where are you from?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a West Virginia girl? Are you a Fairmont in your head? Or are you Columbus?
I say I'm a Buckeye, but I say I was born in West Virginia.
But if you said, what's home?
I would say what's home. I would say West Virginia's home to me.
Uh-huh.
Just because it is, it's home. Although there's not much left there anymore.
Yeah.
Families about gone, and even things are gone in West Virginia or Fairmont. So I mean, Columbus is home
Mm-hmm.
too.
So we didn't do a lot of this, but what family trips do you remember the most?
I remember Storybook Forest when we you and Valerie. I remember Kennywood Park, which was amusement park, and I remember a couple trips that we took when Daddy was a general manager here in Columbus. We went up towards Chicago, up that way somewhere, and then we went down to Indiana. I can't remember the place down there. Jackie Basin.
To what?
Was
You went to
down
French Lick.
French
French
Lick.
Lick, yeah.
Thank you. I
Home
couldn't
of
remember.
Larry Bird.
I couldn't remember where it was, and those two trips were special.
Okay.
And there were also special trips that we just took home from Columbus. I remember one in particular, and you were a teenager in high school, and I think it was around Thanksgiving, or I'm pretty sure it was Thanksgiving, or it could have been during the Christmas holiday. Valerie didn't go, but you did. And I remember us taking the shortcut through Caldwell and going over to the river and taking another shortcut that took us to Mannington. And it was like a 2-lane road all the way after we had gotten off the interstate. And the road was like a country road going to Nami's house.
It was a wide single-lane road, pretty much.
Yeah, and the hills that we had to go up was kiss your ass curves, you know. And you were in the back seat. I remember with laying with your feet out across the seat against the side. And every time we go around the curve, and then you got tickled, and you'd laugh, you know. And you were in high school. And you got Daddy and I laughing, and then I think Daddy really tried to make the curve even a little more so. But as we got closer to Nami, you were just tickled about the country roads and things we were seeing along the road. And then we had to stop for the cows crossing the road.
I remember that. Yeah.
And you got so tickled.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I
and
do
we had
remember that.
such a fun laugh with you, Daddy and I both. You know, we remember that. You know, stopping for the cows to get, and you're saying West
That
Virginia.
30 cows, it must have been 30, 40 cows.
Yeah, there were a lot of them, remember?
So, do you have a favorite vacation memory with just Dad? Doesn't have to be a place, just a memory.
I've got several. I've got several special ones. One really special one was the Emmys when we went to California, and then we detoured and went to Vegas. You know, that was a special time, a special vacation, and that one, Puerto Rico, was special. Even though it was with another couple, we still had fun. When we were younger, it seemed like we didn't have that much money to go on vacations, you know. I remember one when we were building the house at Little Turtle. We went with the Regals. It was our first trip to Freeport. And we went for the weekend with Regals. And it was a fun
That's not
time.
true. That was our second trip to the Bahamas.
Remember?
Nassau was the first one.
Oh, okay.
CMC.
Okay, well, yes, I'm sorry, yes. But it was a fun trip anyway, and it was special. And Daddy kept giving me presents, you know, on that trip. He gave me a bracelet, and it had little hearts on it, and it said, "I love you," on it. He gave me something else. I think it was, I don't know if it was perfume, something. I can't remember. And then I remember that's when he bought me the emerald ring, you know, and I thought he was losing his mind. And then I kept, because he was giving me these presents, you know, and it was just, I don't know, there maybe have been a time I wondered, what did you do? That I'm getting these presents, and why did he take me on this trip, and why?
Esther, the truth is, what did you do?
What did I do?
So what was the most beautiful place you've ever seen where you went? This is just beautiful.
I think Cancun, as far as the water, and Nassau, my first trip to see the water, and Nassau, Cancun, Puerto Rico, as far as being and seeing a lot of the place besides just the hotel, you know.
We drove half the island.
Yeah, because we drove all over Puerto
Herb
Rico.
loved to drive.
Yes, yes. But I just remember, and maybe it was because, like with Nassau was the first trip, and I couldn't imagine the water being that color, you know, the blue that it was.
It's beautiful.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So, do you have any particularly funny stories about Dad that you can share that will make you smile every time you hear it, or it makes you laugh? You know, could be an old story, could be a new story, anything where you just can think back and you go, "Oh my gosh, this one time."
The one time that we were in New Jersey, and I was pregnant. We had been to the NCO club. The band had played, and was finished. And it was
I know
after,
what you're gonna say.
it was after midnight, of course, probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And why we didn't have a ride to go home down the hill, and I don't remember how far it was. That
Up on the hill was probably half mile down the
half
hill.
a mile down the hill.
And then a couple blocks to get to our.
At least 2 blocks,
Our house.
longer, to get to our house. And like I said, it was probably in maybe August, you know, but it wasn't hot because it was nighttime. It was cool. Daddy had too much to drink, and
Way too much to drink.
and more than normal when he was playing a gig. And of course I had some too, but not near as much because I didn't drink that much. Yeah, but I shouldn't have had any being pregnant. But we had to walk home. And we had to carry Daddy's bass guitar and his amplifier. And I'm pregnant. You know, I shouldn't be carrying
And a half
anything.
mile?
And you're going downhill.
That was the good news. If gravity was the big
Yeah, you're going
Did you have
downhill.
wheels on the amp?
one.
No.
Okay.
No. That thing had a wooden handle wrapped with whatever, naugahyde or whatever it was. You know, it wasn't leather, but it looked like it.
And I tried to carry the guitar. Daddy was with the, plus I was holding on to Daddy, you know.
Because I was staggering all over the place.
Yeah. Of course, I'm in a skirt, and
It was a sight to behold.
oh yeah. And as we're walking, of course, and you're going downhill, and I remember it was kind of slippery. It was a paved road. It wasn't a sidewalk, you know. And you slide with your shoes, or at least I was. But the guitar was too heavy for me to be carrying, you know. And I told Daddy, I said, it's too heavy for me. And I said, he said, let me help you. And he took it, and then I helped him. We both held onto the handle so we're both carrying it, the guitar. And then he's got the amp in the other one, you know. And
That amp was probably somewhere between 50, 60 pounds.
Yeah. And we did. We made it all the way
And the
home.
guitar with the case, the guitar itself was almost 9 pounds, and the case was probably another 10.
Yeah, so it wasn't light by any
No.
stretch.
No. No, and nobody came up or down the hill in a car.
Otherwise, you probably would have hitchhiked yourself in
Yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah, we'd have got a
We
ride.
could have got a
somewhere.
ride some way, you know. And
Everybody wants to be with the band, you know. Hey,
And when you got home,
when we got home, I mean, it was all we could do. The Daddy's hands were like that, you know, where he's holding on to the handle of that guitar. And
I'm sure.
you know, his fingers are, you
Sure,
know,
you were exhausted.
and mine were too, you know, from trying to help him. Plus, he was staggering,
and you were pregnant.
and I'm pregnant, and I remember I was mad. The further we went, the madder I got because, you know, you shouldn't have been drinking like that, you know, and we should have found. You should have found a way home for us, you know. Call a cab, you know, something, you know.
No cab up there.
There's
We
no
didn't have
cab.
a cell phone. How do you call a cab?
You know, well, before we left. And we went to bed. I know I was still mad when we went to bed. I think he just plopped, you know. It was a Saturday night. And then the next morning on Sunday, and we talked a little bit about it, but I was still mad. And I told him he wasn't supposed to drink anymore whenever we had a gig up there, you know. And I was with him. He wasn't ever to drink again. Of course, he promised he wouldn't, you know. I don't think he held
I
true
think
to
I
that.
kept that promise.
Oh, that's funny. So, did you guys ever have it? Well, probably not that night, but at any time, did you have any cute nicknames for one another?
No, it was always honey and sweetie.
Honey, sweetie, John. Sometimes I think I called your dad Johnny, but
Johnny. I don't
but
think I've
most-
ever heard that.
Yeah, well, that was young when we were early married or dating, but more John than Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
What about him? He call you just Esther, or
honey
Was it-
usually,
okay?
honey. Because we had an issue there with when we got Sonny, because Sonny's name was Honey when we got him, and because Daddy calls me Honey, and I call him Honey, we couldn't call the dog Honey because we're all going to be mixed up.
Yeah.
So we changed Sonny's name to Sonny. You know.
I guess it's better than calling you Sonny.
Yeah.
So
But
what?
I'm trying to think. I never called you Gussie. I don't think ever.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Or
So-
Essie or anything, you know.
So what about are there any special heirlooms or photos or Bibles or other things that have been passed down to you from anybody? From Dad's side of the family? You got anything from Mom or from?
I don't have very much from Mom. I have a little pen that had a watch it was a watch, but it was a pen that she put on. I have Bibles and memory books from both of their funerals.
Okay.
I have, but I don't really have anything else from them.
Don't you have some dishes? I know you got your dad's cup from when he was a baby.
Not from your mother.
No, not from my mom.
Yeah, I'm talking about your
Oh,
mother.
I'm sorry.
I don't have anything.
No, I don't have anything
Daddy's
from my
mom didn't have much,
Okay.
you know, and after Dad died, things were rough for her, and she didn't have much to give away. I do have pictures though of them.
Do you have any special keepsakes that Dad has given to you? That things you'll want Val and I, you know, or to get passed down to McKenna and Lindsay through the years? Anything like that that you think will be a great keepsake for them?
Well, obviously we've got our collection of B-56 with snow babies and houses and stuff. I've got special things that belong to my dad's father, things that belonged to my grandmother, things that belonged to my mother.
Like what kinds of things? What do you have like from Dad's, from Grandpa Gus's dad?
Grandpa Gus's dad. I have a plate, cup, and saucer that he ate from as a little boy, and it was china,
Okay.
and that's in my hutch. I have a cup and saucer that belonged to Mom. I have a candy dish that belonged to her mother. I have things that belong to her great aunts. I have handkerchiefs. I have all kind of things that belong to different people in the family, like Mom's family and Mom and Grandpa Gus. And I've got them each in big Rubbermaid bins. And I suppose when Daddy and I are gone, that you and Valerie will go through them and decide what you want. Hopefully I'll have things marked, or you'll remember things that, like I remember that picture being on the wall at Nami's house,
Yeah.
And it was a picture of Christ. You
All
probably remember it if you see it.
Yeah.
You'll remember it.
You have it?
Yes. And just like I said, certain things that were theirs, and the same way with Grandpa Gus.
Obviously, we got the drums.
You've got the drums, obviously. As far as things of mine itself, I've got
Stuff that Dad's given you?
Daddy has given me pieces of jewelry that I have, rings and necklaces and earrings and so on. And
Do you remember the first piece of jewelry he got you?
was my wedding band and my wedding set on my first anniversary.
You still have it?
No, I don't. I don't have it anymore. What happened to it? We changed it and made. I got a new
I got you a bigger
diamond.
ring.
He got me a new diamond, and we had another set made. And
No, I remember that.
yes, and I had taken the old engagement ring that he gotten on the first anniversary and got another diamond to match
Just like
it
it.
in size with cotton clarity, and had earrings made. And they were sitting in the bathroom like little turtle.
I remember that when you were selling the house, right? Didn't someone go
Yeah.
through?
Two
Somebody-
real estate agents.
I'm sure it was the real estate people.
If you remember, I had recordings of them because we wanted to hear comments, what people were saying about the house. So before we'd leave, we had an open house. I'd turn on a tape recorder, I had it stuck it under the bed or someplace.
Yeah. Some of
And these
it, yeah.
two real estate agents came through, okay? And they were talking about, oh, look at this, and then silence. Well,
Wow.
I'm sure
Sorry.
that's where it went,
Mm-hmm.
but
she couldn't prove anything,
no. And I've got class ring and special things like that were mine. Most of my things are in my dresser.
Yeah. Because I know, like, I liked hearing that about Dad's ring
Mm-hmm.
and not really knowing
Mm-hmm.
that. So,
You know about Aunt Shirley giving
Yeah.
it to him.
so, yeah, we'll talk more about that next
Mm-hmm.
next week also. So, if you had to guess or say and think back, what do you think's been the most important thing that's kept you guys together over all of these years?
Talking about things, being friends, trying not to argue about money and kids, and trying to be on the same page, with bringing up the kids and what's right, what's wrong,
You think you're always on the same page? for the most part?
I think for the most part, I think we thought a lot alike as far as families concerned, and helping each other, and helping parents. Daddy helping mine, me helping his, you know,
Mhm.
and that I
So you think just talking? You think that was?
I think talking, yeah, about
Mhm.
we'd spend a lot of time talking coming home from West Virginia most of the time,
When we
especially
were
after your
asleep?
kids would go to sleep when you were little,
Mhm.
you know, and we do a lot of talking, and gosh, I remember us doing a lot of talking when we even as we got older and we come from South Carolina, you know, home to Columbus, and we would talk all the way, you know.
Don't even need the radio on.
And we would talk, but we would not just talk about you and Val and your kids. We would talk about other family members, you know, and things they were doing they shouldn't be doing.
How fortunate you were.
You got it. You got it. You know, and
Yeah, a lot of
doggone
people got ripped on those car rides.
it. Yeah, it's a good thing we didn't have a recorder in there.
So, do you have any regrets? Do you wish you would have spent more time doing something, or traveling more, or leaving West Virginia? Do you regret any of that? Any regrets?
I don't regret leaving West Virginia. No, I don't. And you know, we did the best we could for our family. You know, our immediate family. And sometimes I regret that we maybe didn't help a little more with certain things with our parents. You know, maybe financially. I regret. I wonder, not that we had a lot, but maybe we had more than they did, and maybe we could have helped them a little more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
What, regret maybe not having Nami come live with us or something like that?
yeah. Well, I asked her to come and stay with us for a while there when she was sick, but she wouldn't come because of her doctors, and you know, and Alan and Gary
And all
So-
that stuff happened right around 91, right? 91, 92.
yeah.
So, because when did Mom pass?
Mom passed in March of '90, and Daddy's mom passed in March of '92, and Mother in December of '92.
So you had all three right there.
all three.
And when did Bud go?
Bud passed in '84,
Yeah, I thought because I
And he
remember
graduated.
graduation.
and Naomi couldn't come.
Right, but then I remember her driving me to school.
After he went to college.
So it's so ironic that all three of the four
Yeah.
passed, and then the one that lived the craziest, wildest life of all ends up living to
94.
No.
2004.
2014, 15?
15.
You know,
Yeah.
outlived all of them by
Yeah.
nearly 25 years.
Yes. And when Mom and Nami and Daddy's mom all went in that short period of time, it was really hard on me, because those were the three women in my life. They
Mhm.
were the three women in my life. You know, that as a child, as a young woman, you know, and as I was getting older, and of course Dad had already gone. Daddy's dad was already gone, and that only left my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I maybe grew up a good bit then.
Yeah.
You know, I matured really a lot then.
So, what did you learn from your parents' divorces? Did Nami or Mom ever give you advice about being married to Dad, or what to do, what not to do? You know, like any regrets of theirs that maybe they didn't do right?
No, All I remember Mother telling me that, you know, I hope that mine's a happy marriage, that sort of thing. And I think it was also a reason she was maybe worried being so young of me getting married. Um, as far as her daddy were concerned, I knew before I got married that they had split, and my dad was running around on her and had been running around on her since before I was a baby, when I was a baby, you know, and my mother telling me she should have left him when the kids were little, but she stayed with him because the kids were little. She had no job, and how would she support them?
She had no choice.
And there was no place she could go, you know.
And then she ultimately ends up being alone anyway.
And it turns out she ended up, you know, and back with Mom and Pap, you know. And she would have probably gone with Mom and Pap then, you know, if she had left him when we were 2, 3, and 4, as opposed to 13, 14, 15. You know, because that was rough. That was rough. And it was rough on her, too. I know it was rough on her, you know, and what she had to do because she wasn't getting the financial help from Grandpa for us kids.
Which is terrible.
Yeah.
And to think how he wanted to be involved at the end, yet how he was to you guys when you guys needed him. I mean, you're a saint, Mom. I mean, and the boys too. I mean, because they all wanted a relationship with him.
They wanted a relationship with him. Not, they always loved him, but they hated him. You know, at times, you know, when he did things. But there was always that other woman that would also keep him away from us. And I remember saying, how can that woman keep him away from us?
Yeah.
You know, how can he spend money on that other woman and go to Florida instead of giving Mommy money to buy food?
Makes you wonder how much of that was, I don't know, attachment or detachment from his dad when his dad passed. You know, how does that mess you up for wanting relationships, you know? You know, and if he didn't really talk about it.
Right.
You know, so.
Gus was not a one-woman man.
Well.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously there's more to it than just that. I mean, there's a reason why he didn't want to attach, you know, because he never did. Wasn't like he was just searching for a younger one or whatever. He wanted somebody. But.
And especially, and when he got older, he talked about my mother a lot when he was living with us. To me, we would sit and talk, you know. He would talk about, you know, that he did regret leaving her.
He screwed up big time.
Yeah. He knew that. You know, I think he probably blamed himself for Gary and Alan. And certain things that they've done in their lives, you know.
Yep.
To a point. But he also tried to help them at times, you know, when the times got rough, you know.
So I only got a couple more questions here. So, what advice would you give me for being a good husband? Like Dad's been.
I would wish you could find somebody to share your life with, number one. I think back of Grandpa and being by himself as an old age and being by himself. I would hope that you would find somebody. I think if I could give you any advice, I would tell you to be like your dad. You've got to give 150%. because she's going to give 100%.
Mhm.
You got to give 150. You know, be helpful. Don't be selfish. Just because the Buckeyes are on and she wants to go see the girly movie, you got to share. You know,
Mhm.
one time's her turn, one time's your turn. You got to take turns. You know, and if you have kids, be on the same page.
I think that's probably not going to happen at this point.
But you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. Look at some of the movie stars. The babies at the age of 70, you know.
You know, I don't think I'd want that today.
It would be
You know,
difficult.
much different from, you know, with the girls before, where I was at an age where, you know, I kind of had them for that 7-year period.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd want to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not at this age, because I'd want them to have me longer in their life. I'd hate for kids to not have their parents when they're 20 years old or 25 or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
too young.
If you ever find somebody to share your life with, and she has children, whatever you do, take those children as your own too.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't be their father, but you can be, you know, a mentor.
Yeah.
And you still love them, you know, and hopefully maybe they'll have babies. You can share and all that. You know, you've been a great uncle, and I think you would be a good father. I think you would be a good husband. You know.
Not great.
you would probably be fantastic.
Thanks,
You
Mom.
know, I think the first time maybe you were a little young too.
Yep.
You know, maybe it was too quick.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
No, and she wasn't ready either. I don't
No, we were just too young. Just too
Yeah.
young.
think. And it was
You know,
an experience.
I always say we never talked about whether we wanted kids. We never talked about where we wanted to live. We never talked about any of that stuff. It was, I think you just got to that age
Mm-hmm.
where kids, you're living together and you say, okay, it's that next step.
Mm-hmm.
So as opposed to finding the person that you know, want to be with, where you got the same goals and same beliefs, same values towards family and so forth. So
I think one thing that is, I've never liked the idea of couples living together. Never have. I didn't think it was right, even though they got married later. I didn't like the idea. I think there's that period of time that you're learning about each other, but you still should not be together. I don't think you should be sharing a bed. I just believe that. And maybe that had something to do with you and Aaron. I worry that maybe it has something to do with McKenna and Josh, or whether it will affect them later on, you know?
we will see, right?
Because that first year of marriage, you really learn about that person. And, you know, if they put the cap on the toothpaste, you know, and do they fart, you know, under the covers. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that isn't supposed to happen until you are married.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that affects a lot of couples today.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
I don't know. I don't know about certain things and people, you know, but I do worry about it with my granddaughters. I do.
Yep. So if someone asked you about Dad as a father,
Mm-hmm.
how would you describe him?
He was a fantastic father. It didn't matter. I mean, his babies, he wasn't afraid to to change their diapers or feed them or walk with them or play with them or talk with them and teach them everything, as a child, as a baby and as a young child. And as they got on into teens and high school, college, I think he tried to teach them the right way to do things as an adult, what was different from being a kid, and how you treat people. He turned out to be a great grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
He's very loved by his grandchildren, and I think he's very loved by his kids too.
Yeah.
But he was pretty doggone great.
What about if those same friends asked you about him as a husband?
Oh,
What would you say then?
he's terrific. He was terrific. It's been 57 years. We've been married. There were ups and downs. There's always been ups and downs in marriage, and ours too. And you try to work things out. Daddy's always been for me. He's been there for me for illnesses, just being down, being worried, being scared. Things maybe he thought I shouldn't be, he would try to convince me I shouldn't be,
Mm-hmm.
and he was usually right on that. He tries not for me to worry. He likes to take the worry away from me, He doesn't tell me some things. He tells me more now than he used to. He would keep things from me, especially finances. He would keep from me because he didn't want me to worry.
Yep.
That's all. And sales and commissions and so on. But he's very thoughtful. He goes out and whatever he's going on an errand or what, he'll call. You want a milkshake? You want me to bring something home for dinner? Or, he's always done that. He cares about my friends. He cares about my safety. When I'm driving, be careful. Call me when you get there or whatever. He didn't really like me to work, I don't think. But there were times I think it was probably a good thing I did. But he's a special husband. He really is. I hope I have a whole lot more years with him.
Yep.
It's easy to say when you have nothing to compare to.
So what does being in love mean to you?
Being in love?
Mm-hmm.
What's it mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
It means security. There's a sense of security. I'm in love and I know he loves me. And it's the same way with my kids, my grandbaby. Security, more than anything, is love. It's not a roof over your head or food on the table. It really isn't. It's the companionship that you have with one another.
Just being in it together.
Yeah, the togetherness of it. That, as Mary says, two people join to make one. Go forth and multiply.
Yeah.
and I believe that. I do.
Well, that's great. That's really all I have for tonight. I thought those were some great questions, great answers.
You do have some good questions.
So,
makes you think.
yep.
Makes you think.
Well,
Hope I answered them.
yeah, no, those were awesome. So, Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love you.
I love you too.